My guest today is Whitney Nicely. Whitney is a full-time real estate investor. She's a real estate coach focused on working with women investors, and she's a speaker, a contractor, and a content creator. And I encourage you to check out her websites, full of great videos and all sorts of good stuff. Whitney is based in East Tennessee, and with that, I'd like to welcome Whitney to CREPN Radio.
Thanks
Whitney,
for having me, Darren. This is going to be fun.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You're based in East Tennessee. Is that for those that aren't familiar with East Tennessee? Is that the good part of Tennessee, or is that what? How do you distinguish East?
Yeah, that's God's country.
Okay,
And
okay,
then as you go farther west, as far as I'm concerned, it could just drop off into the Mississippi River. I don't see any use for it. But I like the rolling hills. I like the mountains. I like the lakes and the streams and everything that we have in East Tennessee. And all the national media attention and good real estate deals are in West and Middle Tennessee. So as long as everybody keeps spending their money over there, it leaves more deals for me in East Tennessee.
there you go. All right. Well, a little geography there. Now we know the good part from the rest of the part of Tennessee. That's good. Hey, Whitney, before we get going in our talk today, could you take a minute and just share with the listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom has always been a real estate investor, and she made like $19,000 a year. And every last penny she could save, she put into real estate investing. So when we got our rent checks in at the first of every month when I was growing up, sometimes that's what it was going to take to make all of our ends meet. And I didn't understand that until I was, into my 20s. And when I graduated college, I went to work for my mom's family company and I made $24,000. So I literally walked into my mom's same situation as a millennial. And I realized pretty quickly that $24,000 a year wasn't going to be enough to get me where I wanted to go. So I started investing also, but I was doing things the old, slow, boring way, like my mom kind of taught me, which was to save as much money as you could, buy something, rent it, and hope and pray you got your money back someday.
Right.
So I started doing that until I ran out of money. I went broke and I had two houses and two pieces of land and I was renting them, but it was going to take like 115 years to get enough money that I would have, real
Replace.
cash flow.
Right, right, right,
And clearly, even if I was in my 20s, that wasn't going to work.
right.
So I had to get creative, and that's when I got into doing lease options, and then that got me into buying apartments, which got me into buying more apartments and really creating that passive income that we all dream about.
No, that's great. And the aha you speak of, is I know my own little path of real estate is, I kept thinking if I bought them and just the tenant paid down the mortgage, then I'd have some equity, at the end of the mortgage.
And that happens to so many people, and you go get a loan, or maybe you do some house hacking, or whatever. But so many people think that's the way, and that's a way to get started, but it's not a way to finish.
Right. It's not a cash flow play. It's more of a kind of a 401k, real estate 401k kind of thing.
And
But
for entrepreneurs, that's pretty good because we don't really have 401ks,
right,
but it's also a good supplement for your real 401k. So
right,
it's okay, but it's really slow and really boring.
right, right. So how did you go about? What was your aha from? Or I mean, you had the realization of 100 years is a little longer than you like to take. What did you do? What did you change?
I joined a real estate investors association in Knoxville, which, if you want to be a real estate investor, you want to be the CEO of a company, you need to hang out with real estate investors or CEOs, right? You got to surround yourself with people that you want to be like. So I joined the Real Estate Investor Association, didn't know anybody, didn't know what I was getting myself into, and they had a special presentation one night on lease options. And I remember telling the president, Victor Jernigan, that I didn't have the $75 to do this special lease option training because, I had spent my last penny on these houses and this land that I had. And he said, Whitney, if you don't learn anything, I'll give you your $75 back. So
There you
I
go.
went, I learned enough in 15 minutes that the guy presenting, which was a local real estate investor, he wasn't a guru, he wasn't a traveling, talking head. He was just a local dude making $100,000 or more a year doing one or two or three deals.
Wow.
And that was enough for me to really open my eyes to see that if he could do this in Knoxville, I could too. So I put $3,000 on my credit card. I upped my limit, put $3,000 on my credit card, and took myself to Florida to attend the Guru Boot Camp and go through the whole dog and pony show.
There you go. And was there a lot more in the dog and pony show than there was in the local guy's presentation? Did you? I mean, what?
There is, because, with the boot camp, they're there to teach you enough, but to get you to buy into more. Whereas the local guide already showed me what more was out there, but he wasn't in a position to really take me and teach me.
Okay.
So I went through the, mentorship and everything with the big guru, and I did my first deal after I figured out what to do, or kind of figured out what to do, because they never tell you exactly what to do,
Right.
I figured out enough and got myself in a seller's kitchen with a contract and signed a contract with $10 invested. And 8 weeks later, I made $15,000 off that deal, not really even knowing what I was doing.
Wow.
So I went on and I did I did 14 deals in my first 9 months and made almost $140,000. So almost 10 grand per deal, not even knowing what I was doing. But the coolest thing about that, the money's fun and whatever, but I would use that money to pay off some of these other houses that I was buying. So I was getting my houses free and clear without putting my money in it. I was using other people's option fee money to pay off my houses, right? And I don't want to talk about too many houses, but I had one really nice house that I paid off.
Okay.
And when I had it free and clear, I could take out a line of credit against that house, right?
Uh-huh.
So I used my line of credit as the down payment on my first 3 apartment complexes.
All right.
So I'm still in my apartment complexes with technically none of my own money.
There you go. Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is the you can always walk into the bank and with the paid off asset and get a line of credit and go get another one. And if you're buying them right, the cash flow comes, right?
That's right. That's right. And use the apartment money to pay off the line of credit and the mortgage. And I'm going to be free and clear in these things in about 5 years after I bought them in my apartments.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
so
amazing.
I don't do a lot of, crowdfunding, and there's not a lot of, people involved. I like to be self-funded. I'm kind of selfish.
Sure.
And, but then you get to roll that and roll that and roll that. So it takes a little bit of time, but not 115 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you shorten that up just a little bit.
And then I've got 3 free and clear apartment complexes that I could use as line of credits to buy bigger ones and better ones and keep rolling with that.
Well, that's interesting. So the lease options, you were able to, in 1 year, what was your total revenue?
It was like 136,000 and some change, not quite 140. And I did 14 deals in 9 months.
Oh, that's impressive. And so then you were able to pay off your rentals from the lease option money. So how many rentals did you have?
Well, as of right now, I have 19 houses, and I think 11 of them are free and clear.
Wow. And so then you were able to leverage those, the paid off house, and roll that into apartments, right?
Yes.
All right. So, and how long have you been doing this?
I went to my first boot camp in December of 13. So this is December of 17, 4 years.
Wow, 4 years. You've got 11 properties paid off. You've got 19 total properties, right?
19 total houses.
Okay.
And then I've got those 3 apartment complexes with a total of 19 units.
Gotcha.
And I've got 7 chunks of land that I get rent off that land too.
Wow.
Straw land.
That's awesome. Well, I would like to kind of dig into a little bit more about how when you work with newbies,
yeah,
and how you get them from it's an idea to they're at the table with somebody, and kind of take us through that. Is it a mindset? Because it doesn't sound like there's a lot of money required to do this. And then if there's some sort of kind of a process or a system that you implement that you work with your students, so that they can continue to grow and grow and then get into the commercial properties.
So you got to remember that I'm a country girl. I'm from, outside of Knoxville. Knoxville's not a big city to start with, but I'm from the country. And so all of my strategies and tactics are pretty low key. They're pretty organic. Corey Boatwright says I'm the down home girl of real estate because I keep it all pretty local,
Low
right?
key, yeah.
And so that's what I teach, and that's what I teach my students. And so everything that I teach them to do is a lot of it's a lot more psychology of getting in the head of the seller instead of blasting with a neon sign, I buy houses, I buy houses, I buy houses, or, I buy apartments, baby. Like nobody likes that. It gets on our nerves, right? But if you can start to get into the minds and the hearts of a seller before you even start your pitch, you're going to have a lot greater chance of success. And so some things I teach is just on Facebook, just putting a post out there, just telling a story on Facebook, because we all love stories and we all love stories that we can relate to. And most of us have these great, amazing stories of these sellers that have called us, or these kitchens that we've been sitting in, or these people that we've been able to help, and we don't think anything about it. But the more we can tell our story on Facebook or in Sunday school or at the office around the water cooler, the more people are going to be attracted to us to see that we're actually helping our friends and neighbors, and that we can help their friends and neighbors. So I keep everything just as local and as small as I can. That's one thing I learned from, the gurus. I went to lots of different guru boot camps, and they were teaching these big, fancy marketing strategies, and they've got these systems, and it's all this technology, and my little brain just went,
yeah,
like it just didn't work, right?
Right.
So, and I realized I was spending more time learning their systems and their technology than I was talking to sellers.
Yep.
Or being in front of a motivated seller or anything like that. And so I really took everything that I learned, but I broke it down into bite-sized bits that actually work. And so, people will tell you that you need to talk to 100 or 200 people a day. I've heard systems, they want you to talk to 100 or 200 people a day. And that sounds awful, especially because I usually talk to women. We don't have time to talk to 100 or 200 people a day. Are you kidding me?
Right.
I just want you to look at 5 or 10 houses, talk to 5 or 10 people a week, look at 5 or 10 houses. And then what I teach is to make 3 different offers on each house. So if you talk to 5 people, but you make 3 offers, now you've made 15 offers, which is probably more than you're going to make if you're trying to talk to 100 people a day.
Right.
So I take the math and I break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks. I also teach you kind of, what to say so that you're in the head and the heart of a seller. And honestly, it works on commercial sellers also. There's plenty of mom and pa landlords who have a triplex or a 5-unit or a 10-unit, or they got a couple 10 units. But their kids just aren't interested in it. So if you can talk directly to those sellers and leave the big guys out of it, let them play what they want to, you talk to the small mom and pop sellers about their smaller commercial units, there's big money to be made there. And you'll be the only person talking to them because the big boys want the 100, 200, 500 units.
Right.
Take it.
Yeah. No, can you take us through a little bit of you said the heart and the mind of the seller, and I love the story aspect of, I think because that is really what I think most people are attracted to, a story. And if you take 2 books and you can differentiate which is the better story, or whether it's a TV show or a movie, it's the story that draws people in. And I will say that I find people from the South typically are much better storytellers, at least that's what I found. So you've got that on me. But if you could take us through a little bit of the mindset and the heart connection you talked about, because I think there's a lot to that. And I think that so often I find people get wound up in analyzing the deal. And it's all about the numbers, which there's a lot of truth to that. But if you run past what does the seller want, what's the heart and mind of that, I think that there's a huge opportunity missed. Can you share a little bit about?
I think this is also where women shine too, because we are storytellers. We learn from stories. We like stories. We can keep stories in our head longer, right? Men are, speaking from personal experience, my husband just wants the numbers. He does not care about the story. He doesn't want to hear it. It does not matter to him. It's just about the numbers. But I'll do more deals than he will because I'll take the time to learn what the seller really wants.
Right.
Do they really want to get set up on payments? Would that help them in the long run? Would it hurt their tax situation right now to get a big lump sum? Can I create an owner financing strategy out of this deal so they end up getting more money over time? Like, you really got to, and I've got a seller lead sheet that I go through, and it's basically just a whole bunch of questions in a conversation where you really find out what the seller wants. And then when you know the seller's story, then you can feed your story back in to show that you're on the same side, you're on the same team as the seller. The seller wants to sell, you want to buy, they want this, you'll give them that. It's all good, but you've got to get that relationship set up, and the numbers don't tell you how to set up the relationship.
Right, right. No, and I think that's so true. I know, I can think back on a couple deals I've done, and the home runs have been getting to that connection, and it's been more about, and it takes time. I think sometimes some people aren't willing to invest the time.
But that's why, a lot of times, a lot of men are trying to get those 100, LOIs out a week. Whereas I think you only need 5 or 10, because if you spend more time with those 5 or 10, you'll get a much sweeter deal.
Right.
And so the sellers that I'm going after, and I'll tell you that I like the smaller units. I when we talk about needing $1 million or $2 million just to put down on a property, and then we're going to need 10 people involved in the deal, and we're splitting it up 10 different pie slices, it just gets too much for me. So I like the 20 units or less. I like those smaller units. And usually people that own 20 units or less are mom and pop investors. They had some land, they put up a whole community of duplexes. Now mom and pop have died, kids don't want it, they don't live in this area anymore, whatever. Or somebody got a retirement fund and they bought a triplex. They don't even live near there, and now they just want to play golf. They don't want to talk about tenants and toilets. Those people are on Craigslist. My triplex came from Craigslist. No agent, no MLS, no nothing. And we had an owner finance deal worked out until the husband found a beach house or something that he wanted to buy, and he needed just the cash. So we were able to buy a triplex. They had it on Craigslist for $125. They were under market rent, because mom and pop investors are usually, right, under market rent. And we ended up, since we paid cash, I think we bought it for like $88,000.
Wow.
And it was bringing in $450 a month. I've got it up to $600 a month, or $650 a month. I brought it up $150 per unit in the 2 years that we've had it.
$650 per unit?
Per unit.
There you go. Okay.
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
No, right.
And, it's just, for me, it was about talking to them. They were in Florida. This property's in Tennessee. They never even seen the property. They were tired of just people coming and going. And I was right there. I could take it, and I wanted it, and we bought it. So taking some time, talking to the sellers and really figuring out what's going on will pay huge dividends. I mean, I bought that triplex for less than I pay for houses.
Yeah. No, I was going to say
and it brings in 3 times as much money.
Right. Are all of your properties local?
Yep. I've got 2 little honey holes in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I call them honey holes because that's where we make the money honey.
Yeah. All right.
And that's what I really like for my students to do. Everybody's kind of panicky. Oh, it's a hot seller's market. Where am I going to get started? And so I've got a strategy to help you pinpoint the area of town or the area of the country where you're going to be able to get in, get some deals done, which is going to boost your confidence, right? And it's going to allow you to go into other areas once you're established, once you're, experienced. Because the worst part about getting started is you don't have a track record. You don't have anybody that can speak for you. You don't have any of that. So you need to get into a place where you can get some quick, fun, fast wins, and then mushroom.
Right. When you pinpoint your market there, is there any kind of I think a lot of times on commercial properties, people focus on like MSAs of a certain size and stuff, and you kind of being more of a rural setting, you're probably, I'm assuming that's not as critical to your strategy as much as just figuring out a market that works, or is there?
I like blue collar neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. I like areas where I could definitely rent a house, and if I could rent the apartments, that's good too. My triplex is actually at the entrance to a mobile home park. I don't know why the mobile home park didn't buy my triplex because they own like everything around there.
Sure.
My other 2 units are the only apartment complexes in the zip code.
Okay.
I am the apartment queen of that zip code because there's none other. There's no other apartments there. So that's what I look for. I want to be a big fish in a small pond. I want to be in an area that all the big boys are looking over and skipping because it doesn't meet all of their criteria. But there's still good people there that need those homes. They need those places. I've had tenants in my bigger unit is 11 units. It's a 6, a 4, and a house on the same parcel. So it breaks into 11 units. And there's been people there for like 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
Like, this is their home. They're not in and out. Our turnover is very low there because people move in and die there.
Yeah. No, it sounds like that is their home. They're putting down roots. Yeah.
And when we bought that unit, we were there checking it out, just kind of looking over things because we were new and we wanted to inspect everything. And we were talking to the tenants and they were kind of standing back from us. They were a little bit, acting like they were scared or whatever. And one lady finally said, "Look, I just got to ask y'all. We've got chickens, and we just want to make sure that when you buy this place, we can keep our free-range chickens." And we were like, "If chickens make you happy, have the chickens." And she said, "Good, because we also plant tomatoes in the front yard during the summer, and if y'all need any, you just stop by any old time and get you as many tomatoes as you want."
There you go.
We just share them in the whole complex.
There you go, huh?
Okay, great. Like, that was their biggest concern with us buying the apartment complex.
Yeah. Well, and again, it sounds like a little bit of the story there. They're getting that story, you're getting that connection there, and making everybody feel good. That's good.
Absolutely.
So you get in and you have you work with your students to get some wins, get some confidence. You talked about focusing on five a week, kind of a pace. What about, escalating from, I think on the single family thing, I see that really working. When you get to the commercial side of things, and now we mentioned the mom and pa investors are, more, or not as sophisticated, et cetera. Do you find there's any different strategy or any different, motivations you need to uncover when you're looking from a single family to like a more of a small apartment complex?
No, not usually, because they're still in that mindset of being a tired landlord. It's just not that they're just tired of one tenant. They're tired of all 5 or 10 of their tenants. They're tired of the text messages. They're tired of the handyman calls. They're just tired of managing it. A lot of mom and pop investors on their small complexes are self-managing it. And you and I both know that'll drive you crazy.
Right.
So again, it's the same strategy. They're tired landlords. It doesn't matter if they're tired of 1 or 10, they're tired landlords. And when you can help them, when you can take this problem away from them, you'll improve their marriage, you improve their financial situation, you improve their psychology. They're the same people. And a lot of times, people who have 1 or 2 or 3 houses also have 1 or 2 or 3 duplexes or quadplexes or, whatever. So you could find, one of my students is outside of Nashville, which is a super hot market. She found a dude with 37 properties.
Wow.
Because
is she taking them all over?
Yeah, she's taking them all. She's taking them all. They're all in like 2 different counties south of Nashville. She's got them all under contract.
Wow, good for her.
And she's going to sell them as a unit because, there's big guys that want 30 and 50 and 100 houses at a time with a couple duplexes sprinkled in.
Yeah. No, that's a good strategy.
And this dude was just tired of being a landlord and his kids didn't want his properties. And so it doesn't matter. When you go after tired landlords, that's all you really need is tired landlords, because they usually got them free and clear. You can get owner financing. You can get no money down. You can just take the problems away. Sometimes they're empty. I have a student in New Mexico. She found a lady who had a triplex that was empty that she'd inherited like 10 years ago, and she rented it for the first 5 or 6 years, and then she got tired of it. So she's been sitting empty. So my student was able just to make her a low offer, like 20 grand, and she's putting 10 grand into it, and she's going to rent it for One unit is $1,000. It's right under $2,000 a month on a triplex, and she's going to have 30-ish thousand invested
It's pretty good.
from a tired landlord.
That's pretty good.
That's it.
Well, as I said, I almost have that thing paid off in a little over a year. That's
For sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
For sure.
So when you say tired landlords, and I definitely recognize that, is there any kind of a number of years that you look for? That is there? I mean, do you do any kind of sophisticated searches, or how are your
Nope.
students finding? I mean, are they doing drive-bys? Are they?
Yeah, you can do driving for dollars. We do a lot of yellow letters.
Okay.
So we send out letters that are actually handwritten. I've got a strategy so that we got, your yellow pad of paper, and you can either drive around and have these, or you can go to the office store and get a whole bunch of these printed off and just tape them on the doors of empty houses, empty triplexes. A lot of times you can find people that have their houses or their apartments for rent.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of having a property management company, if it's a mom and pa landlord and they got to rent it, or sometimes they've got a family member that's doing their property management for them, you can call on those for rent signs or those for rent listings on Craigslist and Zillow and say, inquire about the rental, and then say, hey, you thinking about selling this thing?
There you go.
And a lot of times they'll say, oh my God, yes, please, somebody just give me anything. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And you'll go, oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, tell me more. Tell me the story, huh?
Tell me your pain. Let me see if I can help you. I know some people.
There you go. Do you find, is there any kind of a threshold of years that you find somebody's owned the property?
I like, when I pull my list, I like anything from like 88 to 08.
When they purchased it? Is that what you're saying?
They purchased it 88 to 08. That way they've had it for a good long time. It may or may not be free and clear, but they've had it long enough that they've got all their money out of it. And, when we start looking at the ones that were bought in 6, 7, and 8, it may be that they're just now getting to where it's worth what they paid for it. And they're at the point where they're ready just to wash their hands of it.
Right.
Anything in the last 10 years, you're kind of tired of it, but you're not as tired of it as if you've been dealing with it for 20 years.
Right. Right.
So I want them to have owned it for 10 years or more, I guess.
Got it. So you've got your letters, and it sounds like are you mailing those, or it sounds like are you putting them on the door, or both, or?
Both. It depends on what you're doing. Driving for dollars. I like to teach driving for dollars because a lot of people just don't know how many opportunities are out there in their area. And seriously, just taking the long route to take your kids to school, or taking the long route to work, because we know you don't want to go there, or going home, just looking for places that are empty. They're grown up. They're not being taken care of. Nobody's pulled the paper in. There's just lots of different things. And you can find apartment complexes that are empty.
Right. Right.
And all you got to do is look for them. Take an extra drive. Take an extra little bit of time. Listen to your podcast, listen to your audiobooks, listen to whatever you want to, and just drive around and see what you can find. And that's just gas, you're going to pay for that anyway.
Right. Right.
It just takes a little bit of energy. And that's really fun. Again, because I'm teaching women, you can get the kids involved. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. You teach the kids what to look for. Suddenly they're pointing out stuff when you're not even looking for units. My stepson is awesome. He rides around with his mom, his stepdad, his grandparents, whatever, and he keeps track. And then when I get in the car, we have to go find what he found, and then he'll take a letter up and tape it on the door for me.
Oh, that's great.
He loves it. He has a blast with it.
How old is he?
Even going on vacation. He just turned 11 last week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
you got a bird
get the
dog
kids
in the back
involved.
seat.
Teach
That's
them.
great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. So can you share a little bit about the seller financing motivation and kind of how you go through that?
So a lot of times people are used to getting this money in. Let's say they've got a 10-unit apartment complex and they've been getting, I don't know, let's say $1,000 a month. So they're getting $10,000 a month off this property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it was worth $300,000, no, it'd be worth more than that if they're getting $1,000. Let's say it's worth $500,000, so it's worth $500,000. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And if they got $500,000, depending on how old they are, if they were on a retirement plan, that $500,000 could really throw them out of whack for a while.
Right.
But it could also be that I could agree to pay them, let's say, 6 or 7,000 a month. So I'm keeping some for maintenance and taxes and everything that I need. They're not getting as much per month, but they're also not getting the headaches.
Right.
And they can use this as a, form of estate planning. So maybe they're getting up in age and they don't want to take a 30-year note or a 20-year note, but they do a 10-year balloon. So that I would owe them whatever in 10 years, but they could turn that into, maybe their wife's retirement plan, or they could turn that into their grandkids' trust fund because, their kids are snorting stuff, whatever. You can get really creative with this stuff because a lot of people are really stressed about the world and the president and what the next president's going to do and what the taxes are right now and all these things. But if you can show them that you will give them the 500 and that they're actually going to get the 500 if you get 10 years to pay them off.
Right.
A lot of times I even get no interest when I get owner financing because you have to pay taxes on the interest. What's the big deal? I'd rather give you an extra $500 and do no interest. It benefits me because I'm getting full principal pay down. Benefits you because you don't have to pay the extra taxes on that. And, sometimes people call my bluff on it. But a lot of times sellers are so thrilled that I'm actually on their side and looking at it from their perspective instead of from my own perspective.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. The just the different strategies. And even I had never thought about the tax implications. They're usually more focused on the number or somewhere somebody they heard that it's worth X, and that they should be getting that, and taking the time to talk them down from that as opposed to wrestling with them over the price. Just give
them what they want.
Yeah. I could do that, but here's how I'm going to have to do it.
It's fine.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
That's how I buy a lot of my houses too, and sellers love it because there's something about regular real estate that's kind of boring and it's kind of the same and it's a little bit slimy sometimes. And I'm a broker and I'll tell you right now, it's kind of slimy sometimes. But when you go in and you have a little bit of fun and you show them that it's going to be fun, and especially if you're talking to an older generation and you let them know that, this is for you and your family and they can get involved in your story and feel like they're contributing to your story and your family. And then, because a lot of their kids don't care about real estate, and you can just go in there and kind of bro out with them on real estate, listen to the good old days and those stories. Like, I love those stories.
Right.
And that's why I get a lot of these deals, because I'll take the time to shoot the bull with them.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, again, I think you're listening and you're letting them tell their story. And again, it goes back to the story. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, can you speak at all to the number of touches or calls or whatever? So you drop a letter, you make a phone call. What about persistence to get to the deal? Can you talk at all? Once you find somebody that's interested?
When you find somebody that's interested, it's usually off the letter. You can know really quickly if they're going to be interested or not. They'll call back and they'll say, yeah, I'd love to sell it. When can we talk? When can we get work this out? Or they'll call back and say, I love my unit. Leave me alone. Take me off your list.
Right.
Sometimes a little more colorful than that. Yeah. But you can tell pretty quickly. And then the ones that don't call, well, maybe it was a bad time for them. So every 3 months, maybe you send that list again and you change your letter again. Sometimes you send a letter that says, hey, I saw your unit. It looked empty. I was wondering if you'd want to get rid of it. Call me. Sometimes you send a letter that says, hey, I sent you a letter 3 months ago. Never heard from you. I was wondering if you'd been in between tenants and if there was a problem, call me. I like to help. There's lots of different letters you can send that actually sound like a person sent them instead of like, I would like to buy your property at 123 Main Street. Call me quickly.
Yeah.
Ugh.
No, and I know I get lots and lots and lots of those myself.
I know.
Yeah.
Another thing that's cool, though, is when I send letters, I take a picture of them. I take a big picture of my stack. I take pictures when I'm at the mailbox, the blue box, dropping them off. And that way, landlords that are on my Facebook feed see that I'm doing that. So when they get a letter from one of my competitors, they send me a message on Facebook. And they're like, hey, I just got this letter from so-and-so, but I got you, girl. When I'm ready to sell it, I got you.
Oh, that's sweet. So
and
you've got...
Yes. So I'm telling a story.
Yeah. You're
on Facebook.
Exactly.
Other people are using their money to send these letters And
Right.
I'm still getting the leads off of it because I told a story.
Yeah.
And it's the same story every day.
Well,
I buy houses, I buy apartments.
what's interesting, and I think it goes right back to the connection you've made with these potential sellers, that you've already made that connection, the heart and mind connection, and they're
Head.
tied into you, and they know your story, and even when they're approached by others, they've already made the decision that when they're ready, you're going to be their buyer, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And then I get just strangers too that just see my stuff or somebody else commented on it or something and then they send me a lead. And so I just like to be, a little bit like Jesus. I got my hands out, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that I'm coming out here, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's that I'm here to help all the sellers I can, even if you're not in my area. I hand leads off to my students because I got students all over the country. People send me leads all over the place, and I just farm it out to whichever student likes that area. I don't
Right.
care. I want everybody to get the deals. There's plenty of deals out there. There's plenty of sellers out there for all of us. Go do the deals, have fun, make some money, and let's get it done.
I like it. I like it. Hey, Whitney, what's the one thing, if you had to boil it down to one thing, that you'd recommend our listeners do to grow their portfolio?
Keep going. Whether you're getting a good deal or a bad deal, you got to keep going. Whether you spent every last penny you have, keep going. There's somebody out there that won't want your money. If you're always tied to you got to have this much money to do this and that and the other, then you're going to limit yourself, and those owner financing deals with no money aren't going to come because you're not open to them. Keep going and keep finding new strategies to get new deals, and don't turn your nose up because maybe you think this complex is too small. You might make a 30% cash on cash return on a little unit, or you might get something with a 9% cap rate. So what do you want?
Right.
I want the money. I don't care how big the unit is. I don't care where it is really. As long as the money is coming in right for me, I'm not trying to brag that I got 1,000 units and blah, 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 blah. My cash is right.
Yeah, right. Right. No, and I think that's huge because I think the focus so many times, and people think about bigger, that the reality is at the end of the day it's cash, and it's cash flow and percentage, like you mentioned there.
Which equals time freedom.
Yeah. No, that's
The
great.
cash flow is awesome, but I'm making this much money, which means I get to go on all the field trips. Means I get to go, to lunch with my girlfriends. Means I'm not having to hustle all the time. Means I get to drink coffee on the back porch with my husband because we got our money coming in. Right? And I'm a little whatever about this. I don't actually like real estate, Darren.
Really?
Yeah. I love what real estate gives me.
There you go.
It's not the sticks and bricks that I'm obsessed about. It's the life that I get to live that was totally different than my life 3 years ago.
I gotcha.
And most of the time, people get so focused on the actual product of real estate that they forget there's a real life out there that could be affected by this.
Right.
And you got to, step back and say, what do I want my life to look like? What products do I need to put in place? What inventory do I need to have the life I need? And then how can I just make it better? Not just bigger, but better.
No, that's really key insight there. I think that I'm serious because I think so many people, it's the asset they fall in love with. It's real. It's but the reality is, at the end of the day, it's the money, right? It's the and the opportunity, the lifestyle it offers you, right?
I put this up on Facebook and people went bonkers over it. How I said one time that houses are like hookers. Don't fall in love with them. They're just there for the money.
There you go, huh?
It is so true. Don't fall in love with them. It doesn't matter. Make your money right.
No, that's awesome. So you mentioned Facebook a lot here. You've got, can you talk a little bit about is it, do you have groups? Is it strictly just your contacts? Can you talk a little bit about how you use Facebook?
I have a free Facebook group, Become a Real Estate Investor with Whitney Nicely. and you can check it out. You're welcome to join. I put lots of real estate tips and tidbits and, affirmations and encouragement. And, we share all sorts of ideas and strategies in there. And then I have 2 paid groups that you get into when you get into my programs. So I teach people how to do the houses. I'm coming out with an apartment blitz program. So I'll teach you how to get into, the smaller units and do it without any money, without credit, without banks. Do it the way that I did it, which is, fun.
That's great. Well, hey, Whitney, before we wrap up, if you could share with the listeners how to get in touch with you, learn more.
You can go to getyourfirstdeal.com. Getyourfirstdeal.com. I've got a free case study that I'll send you. And then in that email, I'll invite you into my group and whatever, or you can, check me out, whitneynicely.com. Whitney like Houston, nicely like nicely done.
There you go, huh? I like it. Well, Whitney, I want to say thanks again for taking the time to talk. I've really enjoyed it. And you're just a spark plug, and you got lots and lots of good ideas there.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate it.
All right. For our listeners, remember, we're here to learn and share. If you like the show, share the show with someone you know. You can share Whitney's story and lessons she shared here on how to grow your real estate business. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.